Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the SugarCube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to continue talking about my current project of coding the combat system for a viewer's game. More specifically, I've been dealing with changing weapons and inventory, and I've added a new feature to that. The feature is that instead of having a single slot of what weapon the player has in hand, there are now actually two slots, one for what they have in their favoured hand and one for what they have in their offhand. And this makes a pretty significant difference in terms of the economy of the game, in terms of what you can do with a single action, given that you have limited actions. So I'm in the inventory here, and you might also notice that on the sidebar there's a couple of new things displayed. It tells me what I have in hand and what I have in my offhand, a pistol and nothing, respectively. I have all this stuff in my inventory. Instead of a single button that says equip, we have two buttons. I can equip to favoured hand, or I can equip to my offhand. So I can swap the pistol for a machete, as I was able to do as of the previous video. But instead of having to have a pistol or a machete, I can now have a pistol and a machete. I can do that by getting one of these pistols, and instead of equipping it to my favoured hand, I equip it to my offhand. And so now I have a machete in hand and a pistol ready to go. And if I decide, no, actually I want to have the pistol, I want to use the pistol first and maybe the machete later, then I can just click this swap hands button, and you can see that it does exactly what it says on the tin, swaps the hands. And let's say that I'm satisfied with that. I return to the battle. That costs me an action, but now, because I have, let's say the pistol only had a couple of shots left, and that I had coded the things I have to code for ammunition, well, I could use the pistol, but when the pistol runs out, I could also use the machete. And so for that single action, I've gotten sort of access to two weapons. Whereas before, when I only had the in-hand slot, or the what weapon I was carrying, I would have had to have gotten out the pistol, used it up, and then spent another action to get the machete. And so this is sort of makes it a bit easier for the player characters, basically, and more importantly, it fits what the viewer whose game this is going to be, how they want it to work. I also have the same. Well, it is actually a different bit of code, but I also have a swap hands button in the main display here, so I can, if I let's say I do that and then I go, well, no, actually I'll use the machete here. I can sort of change my mind there. And swapping hands doesn't cost any actions. It's a free action. So that's what I've done. Let's have a look at the code that allows it to happen. So if we're going to keep track of what's in the offhand, well, we need a variable to keep track of that. And I have created a new array. It's called $offhand, so $OFFHAND. And I have a little note there that just says it's the equivalent of weapon, but covers what, if anything, the character has in their non-favoured hand. So it works exactly the same as the $weapon array. Let's have a look. We also have to set up the initial value of that, just as we set up the value of $weapon. We set the value of $weapon to 7, which is a pistol, and I decided to set the initial value of offhand to 0, meaning nothing. So we just add that underneath the bit where we set up weapon. And because this array also covers what the companions do, we need to set that up when we're setting up a companion. So underneath where we set weapon Z equal to 7, where Z is the slot of the companions array that we're dealing with at the moment, we also set offhand Z to 0. So they too start with a pistol and nothing in their offhand. Now you can't attack with what's in your offhand with the game set up as it is. It's all the combat, the button for attacking works exactly the same as it did before. Refers only to the weapon array. So the offhand array is only useful if you swap what's in there with your with what's in your favourite hand. So for that we need the swap hands button, or actually buttons, because it's very similar code, but I found it easier to just have almost the same code in two different places. Usually I would try to have it in a single place and then use an include, but it sort of seemed like it would be more complicated to set that up than was worth it. So there's one in player character and one in inventory. The player character button, it's underneath the button that sends you to the inventory screen. It's here. The button has the text swap hands. It sends you to whose go is it, rather than sending you, as you might expect, you might expect it to just send you to player character because it doesn't sort of do anything else. But it sends you to whose go is it, and the reason it sends you to whose go is it is so that we can print the battlefield out again, because this passage is just the buttons for the players' different choices that they can make. And we don't want to just have a screen with just those buttons. We want to have the battlefield, and then underneath that, the buttons. And so we send it to whose go is it, and we set this variable print underscore dist to 1, which tells the computer that yes, we are going to want to reprint the battlefield. So please do that when you have the opportunity. And then we do this swap, which we've done 3 lines of code. We've done versions of this several times before. It's very useful for swapping two things. We have a temporary variable, in this case Z. We set Z equals weapon 0. So we set the temporary variable equal to one of the things you want to swap. Then you set that thing equal to the other thing you want to swap. And then you set the second thing you want to swap equal to the temporary variable. So in this case, we're swapping between weapon 0 and offhand 0 and using Z as the temporary variable. And that's what we do. This code is all in between the button and slash button, which means that it executes when the button is pressed. And in inventory, we have, I think that's where it is. Yep. We have very similar button, except that it goes to inventory, i.e. it goes essentially to it reloads this passage again, and it doesn't have the print underscore dist set to 1 because that's not relevant to being in the inventory screen. We don't print the battlefield when we're dealing with inventory. The other thing that we did is in inventory, we used to have a single button to equip a piece of equipment, but now, of course, we need 2 because we need one that says equip to favoured hand and one that says equip to offhand. So in the array where we print the name of the weapon, we print two different buttons in 2 different cells of a HTML table. So we have print button, equip to favoured hand, which sends us to equip, set Z equal what Z is, and this is new. We have set X equals 1, and then in the one where we're equipping to the offhand, we have set X equals 2. And that distinguishes, because we're sending it to the same place, that lets that passage distinguish where we're putting the new weapon, if that makes sense. So let's have a look at this. Again, I could have probably sort of unified this code a bit more, but it was easier to just go if X equals 1, do this, and if otherwise, which means if X equals 2, do this. So again, this is a swap, that 3-line swap. Set Y equals weapon 0, set weapon 0 equals inventory 0Z, set inventory 0Z equals Y. And this code is exactly the same, except where we refer to weapon 0, here we refer to offhand 0. So this is what happens when we equip to favoured hand. This is what happens when we equip to our offhand. And so, having done all that, we now have we now have 2 slots, and that makes it a bit easier to get things out of the inventory. It makes that that action a bit more efficient, and probably makes things a bit more realistic, because it does seem a bit weird that if you had a pistol, you need to sort of put the pistol in your backpack, take out a grenade, throw the grenade, get back in your backpack and retake out the pistol. It seems like in real life you'd probably just hold the pistol in your offhand and take out a grenade. So, it seems like it's more realistic, albeit this is not a game that prioritizes realism, but, I think this bit of realism is probably a good one. So I have much more to do. For example, if I'd had a 2-handed weapon in the inventory, I would have been able to take that out and hold it in one hand quite easily, because I haven't written any code that says, no, this one's a 2-handed weapon. If you want to hold it, you need to, that's going to use up both hands. You can't have something else in your other hand. So that's one of the things I need to do next. I've also been told that there's a problem with saving the game with the way that I've currently set it up, and that's probably what I'll deal with in the next video. But those things are all for the future. I will leave it there for now, and I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will join in next time.